what's up, guys? It's Mac and Eric from Indie Invasion podcast / video for today. And we have a special treat for you. We have my buddy James Baldwin from way over in the UK, for those of you watching in the US, who is the creator, designer, mastermind, planner, plotter, and everything else for the Drowned Earth miniatures game. This one right here that is most epic and awesome. And we're going to be talking to him a little bit today about the Drowned Earth, but mostly about the Kickstarter that is coming up in, I can say 2 days, because I'm going to post the video on our YouTube channel today, and it should be up very shortly on our podcast as well during the Kickstarter. So, James, welcome to, I think our third recording for Indie Invasion. That's how special you are to us.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Great to be here.
Good. I'm so glad that you're here to get in here. So for starters, we got a bunch of questions. We're going to try to knock them out since you're a super busy man. Because one thing I do want to say about the Drowned Earth, if you're going to back this Kickstarter, is this. I've backed a lot of Kickstarters. I know you have too, Eric.
Yeah, I actually, yeah.
Far too many, probably, to list. At least to be, it would be rather embarrassing, and everyone out there listening would understand, but it would still be embarrassing to list the sheer number of Kickstarters. But this was a full one-man operation for your first Kickstarter, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. I wanted you to say that because not only did James deliver early on his Kickstarter for the first Drowned Earth, but he was mad because he didn't deliver as early as he thought he was going to deliver.
Yeah, I was on target for 2 months early, and then we had a rule book crisis where they turned up and they'd done something bad, so they all had to be sent back to Poland by road freight. And reprinted and then sent back a second time. So, but yeah, I felt super organized. I definitely can't promise that that'll happen this time around.
No, maybe not, but you can at least appreciate, if you're thinking about jumping on this Kickstarter, you're not going to be waiting 3 years after the Kickstarter ends to still be getting your stuff. That's
no, I understand delays definitely happen, but I feel like, I mean, I shouldn't say things like this, should I? Because it's
but here it comes anyway.
But I feel like if you deliver more than 3 or 4 months late, then there's something. That's not just unfortunate circumstances that are beyond your control. You weren't on the case,
right,
in some way. I understand completely why people deliver a couple of months late, and it doesn't surprise me at all, because particularly when you're, as we will this time, be doing some manufacturing in China, and we're making a board game like product. There's a box and standees and components and cards and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just a really complicated process, and it's out of your control. You leave it with the manufacturer.
Yep.
And shipping is complicated, and logistics are complicated, and it's easy for that sort of stuff to happen. Right. But I think I worked out with the last Kickstarter, I physically processed with my hands something like 280,000 components.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of your updates in that first one, and it was like piles of metal and plastic bags
and lots of stuff. And I should point out, I had some friends that were very generous with their time to help me put little arms in Ziploc bags and things like that.
And if we weren't so far away, we would have gladly helped you put little arms in Ziploc bags.
Well, that would have been awesome, but
but let's go ahead and get stuck in then. So tell us about the Drowned Earth, just so we can kind of set the tone for the Kickstarter. This kind of loaded to say, give me a brief synopsis of the Drowned Earth, because
so the sort of elevator pitch, I've been doing this long enough that I should be really good at it, and I'm really not.
Okay, fair enough. Give us the elevator pitch.
Yeah. So the Drowned Earth, we separate it into two halves. There's the game and the world. So the Drowned Earth as a world is a sort of alternate sci-fi post-apocalyptic setting, a little bit different to most other post-apocalyptic settings in two ways. Number one, we're quite a long way away from the apocalypse. It was at least 500 years. Nobody really knows. And secondly, it's not a sort of nuclear wasteland desert style environment. You know, if you've ever seen pictures of Chernobyl, you know, 10 years after the accident there, you see it's verdant and green and overgrown. And so that's what the world would be like if we disappeared tomorrow. And so you've got all of these science fiction style ruins, overgrown with jungle. Most of them have fallen down. There's the odd sort of skyscraper remaining, poking out of the jungle. The sea levels have risen, and basically you're in an extremely wet tropical environment with dinosaurs and crazy anthropomorphic animal people. The in-world explanation of that is that the builders, they call the civilization that collapsed, the builders were very adept at genetic engineering, and they were quite a decadent society, out of control and ruining the environment, and, you know, sort of allowing a lot of their technology to get out of hand. And so they had to do things like try to restabilize wild populations of animals. And so there were conversations like, well, you know, these lions, they've died out and they're the alpha predator in this area. So the entire food chain is going to collapse unless we replace them. But lions obviously don't cut it in this world anymore. So how about velociraptors? So that sounds like a good idea.
It worked in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. What could go wrong, as everyone said in Jurassic Park?
It's terrifying.
And so hundreds of years later, we find ourselves in a world with all of these people who were genetically engineered and spliced with different animals for various different reasons. Some of the reasons are obscure, some are still remembered. But you know, humans are the minority now. They are the biggest minority, but still the minority in this world. And all the dinosaurs escaped from Jurassic Park, effectively, you know, and found themselves in a world that was much, much better suited, or much more like the one that they evolved in. And so they're doing fantastically well. And now all of the people in the drowned earth are searching through the ruins and trying to rediscover ancient knowledge and ancient technology and rebuild some kind of society. So it's an exciting time because they're at this kind of crossroads where they're, you know, for the last 100 years or so, they've been building bigger and bigger cities, and they've been rediscovering electricity and steam power. And there may be somewhere around the 1890s or something like that, or 1880s in terms of technology. But of course that varies in different parts of the world, just as it does in our world. And now people are having to face the decision about what they're going to do with this new knowledge. Are they going to use it for good and try and build a better society, or are they going to use it to control each other and to dominate and generally be unpleasant and evil? Yeah, he's a lovely example of an altruistic character in the game. But he's one of the 4 factions, and the gameplay wise, the Drowned Earth is a skirmish scale miniatures game where you need somewhere between 5 and 12 models typically, depending on how many dinos you want on your team. The answer is, of course, all the dinos. And skirmish scale, alternate activation, really very, very involved in the scenery. There are very fluid 3-dimensional movement rules for kind of parkour style, running up walls, jumping off, doing that, running, jumping, swimming, doing a whole chain of crazy movement, all in one action with 1 dice roll. So it's very quick and streamlined and easy. There's a reaction mechanic, and so it's a game that lends itself to these really sort of cinematic moments of dramatic tension where, you know, the whole game comes down to you know, one critical point where you're like, yeah, that's where it turned.
Yes. Absolutely.
So yeah, is that enough of an answer? I guess
that's a great answer, and that's a couple of the things that really attracted me to the game. I remember when you were getting ready to launch the first Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember how I stumbled across it, but the post-apocalyptic, but so far after it, is what attracted me because it was different. The apocalypse thing has been so overdone, whether it's a video game or a board game or a card game or a miniatures game. There's so much there. Also, as both of you guys know, I'm a huge independent game developer fan, so that was an attraction. And then you hit me right in the heart, and you said lots of terrain and lots of tall terrain, and all of a sudden I had stars in my eyes. I was thrilled beyond belief, and then I went nuts. So
yeah, then there wasn't pet stores with aquatic, decoration in the tri-state area of Mac.
Yeah. I feel like you raid a lot of thrift stores and dollar stores and that kind of thing for sort of these crazy old like architectural looking toys and things like that. So really,
I kind of cheat a little bit because my wife likes going to thrift stores. So what really happens is if she goes and I don't, she comes home and she says, "Look what I found for you." And I go, "Oh, that'll look so good. Spray painted black with plants all over it."
Yeah.
So she's an enabler, and it's okay. She enables.
Yeah, absolutely. Encourage each other's hobbies. It's important.
Absolutely. Eric, do you have anything, or shall we move on to the next one?
We could go ahead and move on.
All right. So I want to move right into the Kickstarter because I'm excited about the Kickstarter. So give us a brief rundown on what this Kickstarter is going to be, what's changing, what's different, what's the same, how you're doing it. And incidentally, before you start with it, the artwork that you have for letting one word slip out for Raptor Claw Island itself, that is I'm going to have to build something because I love that piece of art. The little ship in the back, the building out in the water. That is amazing. I love that piece of art.
Yeah, no, I'm really one of the things that I've enjoyed. I love doing it in the first Kickstarter, commissioning the art and the sculpts and things like that. And I've spent a lot of time talking to different artists, and I really feel like I've hit my stride in terms of getting the artwork that I want for the game to be atmospheric and to really communicate what it's all about. And so this is we're still in the Drowned Earth with this new Kickstarter, and just to dispel a myth, because I've heard a couple of people talking about it recently. This is not a new edition of the Drowned Earth. It's not a new edition of the game. The Drowned Earth still exists exactly in its original form. This can be used as an expansion for the Drowned Earth, but it's actually a standalone game, and I hope that it's going to be a family of releases. The title is Ulaya Chronicles, and the first chapter is Ulaya Chronicles Raptor Claw Island. And what this is, basically, it's based on the Drowned Earth mechanics, simplified in order that it's that you can play it solo and co-op. And so you are playing against the dinos, which all have little AI decks that control their movement in a way which is unpredictable but not random, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And so you can kind of guess what they might do because you know which dino type they are, and the way that we program their behavior is specific to that dino type. And so they have different strategies and different kinds of things, which means that you, when you're playing against them, will also employ different strategies. And anticipate a little what might happen. But this is a campaign-based game, and so it's a boxed product with standees, no miniatures. All of the miniatures are available separately. You can use your existing Drowned Earth collection. You can add to it with the miniatures that we will be bringing out in the Kickstarter, and of course there'll be a big pledge level to just get everything, the miniature version of it as well. If that's your choice. But it was really important to me this time around that, when people got this box, they didn't put it on the shelf and say, okay, when I have assembled and painted those miniatures and made all the scenery I want to make and what have you, then I can play. This time there's a fold out map, there's flat scenery tiles, there's standees, and so you can break open the cellophane and start playing right away, and then slowly build up your collection over the course, a little bit like a slow roadie, right? You start off playing with the standees, the next first scenario, second scenario, you've got your core, your heroes all built and primed. Game after that, you've got them all painted, then you start doing the dinos, then you start building scenery, and by the time you've finished your campaign, it's very replayable as well, and I'll explain why in a minute. But once you've got everything ready, you can literally rewind, start again, and play through in a different way, make different choices, and really see everything there is to offer in the box.
Awesome. Now, in that vein of that box to get right into the game, are there any plans for a 2-player starter for the old stuff, like a firm and artifactors starter
Yep.
box?
So at the moment we don't have. It's something that I know retailers definitely want. It's an easy way to get people into the game. It's if I was going to do that, I would want to put a little rules pamphlet, which was maybe not necessarily a simplified version of the rules, but basically quick start rules to get you going. And then, you know, the rules are free to download anyway, so that's not a problem. But I'd have to write that effectively. And I think one of the things that I'm quite enthusiastic about with Raptor Claw Island is it's kind of a proof of concept for some of those sorts of products, like a fold out map and some flat scenery and things that you can use. And if we could make a little starter set that was perhaps 3 character models and 2 dinos per side or something like that, and then everything packaged with a fold out map and flat terrain. I'd like to do something like that in the future. It's not something I'm working on right now, but it's a sort of pipe dream.
We like pipe dreams, and we're happy to financially support pipe dreams. Kind of our MO here. All right, what you got, Eric?
So, James, I was going to ask, so with the Kickstarter, after the Kickstarter is done, is the rules that are in there for a solo and co-op, is that something that you're going to provide players online, similar to what you do with the core rules then?
No, so you'll definitely have to buy Raptor Claw Island, because you won't be an Ulaya Chronicles box, because the AI rules are also quite component heavy. It's not just a set of rules
specific to that set.
Yeah, exactly. There's basically, you need a deck of cards for every dino type, and you need some special tokens, which there's confusion and other concepts that you can apply to the games. You'll also need to assign before the game. You'll need to discuss with your opponent what kinds of terrain are which types. So in Raptor Claw Island, we're using for the terrain, whether you can move across it, climb up it, or what have you. We're using a traffic light system. So you've got 3 different colors of movement symbol. It's the same symbol, but with red, blue, and amber, red, green, and amber, basically. And so if you've got a green foot, you can only move across green terrain. Amber foot, you can move across amber or green, and red, you can do anything. Nothing will have red, but maybe in the future we might have flying dinosaurs. I don't know.
I saw the dropping. I saw the little comments about flying. I may not have.
It occurs to me that maybe that's a system that was designed with that kind of thing in mind. But I want to manage people's expectations. That won't be coming in this in this one. We might have a whole version of Raptor Claw Island that's devoted to that concept. But yes, the general idea is that the Raptor Claw Island box will provide you both with a single player or multiplayer co-op experience, but everything you need to import that system into the Drowned Earth. And in the rule book, there'll be a couple of pages on how to adapt the system, because it needs a little bit of rejiggering. The cards all work and everything. You just need to remember a couple of things, like deciding in your 3D terrain what's a red foot and what's a green foot, basically.
That was going to be my next question, was how that ported into the Drowned Earth, because that's what I'm wanting right there. The solo and the co-op,
especially now.
Right. Well, to get into that 3D terrain and bring that in.
Yeah, and I think it's something that needs a lot more, well, not a lot more, but it needs more play testing than we've done to really nail down the detail. But when that's done, I won't just stop there. I can really see some exciting ideas for building scenarios around the concept that you've got these neutral dinos, which... well, they're not neutral, really, are they? They hate everyone,
right?
And so
they're fair. They hate everyone equally.
Equal opportunities murderers.
Yes.
But you can really imagine a cool scenario where you've got some ancient facility that's being guarded by a bunch of different dinos, and you've got to do various things in order to get them out of the way in order to get what you want. There's a noise concept in the in Ulaya Chronicles as well, and you can imagine things like lobbing a grenade over your the battle lines of your enemy, so that all of the very aggressive dinos run towards them. Or equally, if you've got scaredy cat dinos, because some of them don't like noise, you could just roll a grenade very slowly towards them. It explodes and they will run off straight into the opponent.
See, that's really enticing for me as very much a narrative player, because I want to tell a story of what I'm doing. I don't want to just throw my models on one side of the table, you throw yours on, and we shoot each other. I want to tell a piece of a story, and I want to string them all together.
Well, and I'd love, because I think you're the man for this. Raptor Claw Island is one story. You basically you wake up shipwrecked on an island with a group of compatriots, and you've got to find your way off the island, basically. And there's a whole bunch of pirates on the island, and you've got to sort of befriend them or oppose them in various ways. There's a big mystery going on that you'll uncover, and all of the time you're interacting with all these very dangerous situations. So you're going to go through dungeon crawl style, scenario to scenario. They're going to be a little bit branching as well. If we unlock some more scenarios during the Kickstarter, they'll branch fairly considerably. But they're also branching even within the games themselves. Right. So we're using a kind of narrative card system where you've got a little objective deck, and it tells you basically you turn up. It gives you a little bit of fluff, and it says go to the river and gather some water. That's what you need. And when you do that, you pick the card up, you read the back, something else happens, then you move to the next card. It tells you what your next objective is. You know, let's say in the water you see there's some wreckage. And it looks interesting, so go and investigate it.
So it's the Drowned Earth Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yeah. I mean, because there are also aspects of both in between games, you'll have different choices, but also you'll flip a card, and some of the cards will give you more than one choice, and that will determine. Let's say you've got chapter 1, chapter 2, and then there's 2 different versions of chapter 3 depending on what you choose when you complete chapter 2.
Okay.
And then at the end, you go back to your campaign log and you look in the book and it says, what did you choose? Did you do this? If so, write down this achievement. And then later on, you'll be asked, do you have that achievement? If so, you get to set up 3 inches closer in, or you get an extra action point in the first turn or something. And there'll be narrative things. There'll be things that make sense.
Right.
So exciting. But my point was, this is just one story, and hopefully we'll do others as well. But I'd really love to see some fan-made scenarios as well. People, maybe we'll release the card, some blank cards, so that people can take them and chuck them into Photoshop or whatever, and write their own scenario cards. It'd be really nice.
Well, you're in luck, because this month, like you might have seen in the Drowned Earth Facebook fan page, we're doing a terrain contest.
Yeah.
But next month is going to be a scenario contest.
Ah, awesome.
So funny how that worked out, isn't it? Almost like it was timed with I don't know. It's crazy how that stuff happens. What are the pledge levels, if you're good with sharing those? Like
sure. So one of the many reasons that I decided to go for standees, the main reason really was that I just wanted this to be a play out the box product.
Quick jump in.
But yeah, exactly. And I've tried to keep it as low an entry point as possible. So the opening pledge level is £39. Which is about $40, I guess. No, it must be more than that.
45-ish, 46.
46,
something like that.
Something like that. So trying to keep it as low as possible. Then adding your 4 hero models. And I'm hoping during the campaign, we're also going to unlock head and arm swaps and some extra weapons for them as well. So that's the next pledge level, is basically the core box plus some heroes. And that's 69. Then for 99, you get everything previously mentioned and 2 of each of the dino types in Raptor Claw Island. So that's 2 Dilos, which already exist in the range, but 2 Sinoraptors, which are little crazy, more murder birds.
We see the pictures of some of those already.
They're pretty cool, right? They're quite an interesting dino type. They're based on a real dinosaur. The name is a little bit made up because they've discovered a lot of dinosaurs in China, as you all know. And so Sino in front of different dino names, there are a lot of them. But these in particular, which is an unpronounceable name with 8 syllables, they've, in the fossil record, it's the only dinosaur they found where the teeth have these sort of grooves, channels on the inside. And in our natural world, the only animals that have these similar looking grooves are venomous snakes. And so they think this was a venomous dinosaur. Which is a fascinating concept.
So now he is a venomous dinosaur, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In Ulaya, that's what they are. I get to just decide these things. Then we've got magnosaurs, which are like a similar size to the Utahraptors. They're 40 mil base sized. They are the kind of, horse-sized, basically, dinos. And then we've got a really big guy, the Baryonyx. Now, the Baryonyx doesn't come in the £99 pledge level. The one up from there is a big jump because it's basically all the dinos and models that you need to play with everything models only, all your heroes and dinos substituted for models. So there's a component limit in the game, which I designed in order that people didn't have to spend $500 to
Gotcha.
get everything that they need. Of course, you can add more if you want. You can, and we'll explore during the campaign ways of doing that, ways of substituting in or adding for extra variety dino types that exist in the Drowned Earth range already. But the component limit basically is the small guys, the Dilos and Sinosaurs. You will, if you've got 6 of each of those, you'll never have to reach for a standee. The Magnosaurs, the limit is 3, and the Baryonyx, obviously, the limit is just 1. So that's a big, that's 189 for 16 dinos, one of which is, the sort of huge guy.
That's probably the one I'm going to have to do, unless there's another one. Is there another one?
No. Well, there is the gene split. Yeah, exactly. He's the Baryonyx is Ceratosaur sized.
Okay.
He's perhaps a little bit longer because he's got a longer snout, but a very similar sort of heft to the model, I would say. By the same sculptor as well, so he'll be of a similar similar quality.
So there is a gene splicer again.
There is a gene splicer again, yeah. And this time it's we've opened it. I haven't mentioned the pirate faction, have I?
No, not yet.
So the pirate faction isn't in any of the pledge levels. It's an add-on, and it basically they're NPCs in the campaign. So they're non-combat models that are either characters in the campaign or objectives. You might have to escort somebody off, you might have to avoid somebody, you might have to rescue somebody, these kinds of things. And they're represented by tokens, objective tokens, but you can swap out those objective tokens for models if you want to. We might, during the campaign, unlock some extra scenarios where they actually are combat figures, either for or against you. So we'll see how that goes. But excitingly, they are a brand new faction for Drowned Earth, and so they'll have the profile cards for both games. And another thing which you might not know about this, actually, I have said it on stream before, but I think it was on our stream. I've decided we have a problem with the Wayfarer faction, which anybody who knows, they're the mercenaries, and it's a really cool concept, and everybody loves them, and I love them, but if you keep on releasing models for the mercenary faction as much as you do all the other factions, then it ends up watering down the uniqueness of the range, and so it's a bit of a problem. But at the same time, if you're a Wayfarer player, it doesn't seem very fair. So I thought basically what we're going to do is the pirates and the Wayfarers are going to effectively be the same faction. So all Wayfarers can be used in the pirate faction without restriction, without the usual Wayfarer restriction of only a certain amount of models per points. And equally, all the pirates can be used in a Wayfarer crew without restriction, as though they're the same faction. The difference is that Wayfarers can still be used as mercenaries, but pirates can't.
Right.
So
I did catch that on the StreamYard that you guys did. That was very excited because I have no more Drowned Earth models to paint.
Well, yeah, they're coming now, and so that brings me to the Gene Splicer pledge. So there are two other things to talk about. Number one is that if we get the arm and head swaps, or particularly the weapon swaps for the hero pack, that hero pack is going to double as unnamed troops in the Drowned Earth. So it'll come with a little deck of probably 3 profile cards for each faction, for 3 different troop profiles. For each faction. Hopefully we will also be able to sell some extra weapon packs. There'll probably be a blister for £15 or something like that will have all of the extra weapons, heads and arms. So you can buy extras. You can buy your 1 hero pack and 3 lots of blisters instead of having to buy 3 hero packs just for the weapons, because that's annoying, isn't it? Of course, this is why I'm not rich, because all the clever people do these horrible things to their fans, but I don't want to. So that's a really exciting thing. You know, hopefully we will have we'll be expanding the Drowned Earth range in that sense, and it'll bring new tactical options to the table. Gene Splicer wise, what we've decided to do, or what I've decided to do after asking various people their opinions about different plans that I've had. You can make a pirate if you want. You can make somebody from any Drowned Earth faction, and they will double as your hero model in Ulaya Chronicles. So basically, you choose 2 things. You choose your Ulaya Chronicles character class. So you're going to be a tough, you're going to be a scout, you're going to be a marksman, or you're going to be a brawler. And then you also choose which faction you want to belong to in the Drowned Earth. So it'll be a kind of multi-purpose figure, and we'll make the Gene Splicers, we'll make them cards so that they can swap in, they can name their character and swap them in. All of the regular heroes for Ulaya Chronicles will be unnamed, so you can name your own, but the Gene Splicer ones will have names.
Okay.
Cool. It has that kind of almost RPG like feeling to it.
So yeah, and you'll be leveling up during the campaign, and there'll be various. Yeah, my cat's crying at the door, wanting to be let in, but I'm wise to that. Yeah, the RPG like aspect, being able to level up your character. You won't have a choice of character class. Each model will be a specific class, but within that class, you'll have a little deck of about 10 upgrade cards, skill cards, and the way that you choose, you buy them with XP, and by the end of the campaign, you're not going to have enough XP to have bought all 10. So the combination of cards you choose allows you to build not only your hero in a particular way, but it allows you to collaborate with other players, so that if you choose that skill and they choose that skill, you've got some synergy between you, and you can to really encourage the co-op to actually be cooperative.
Okay. And I think you really struck at a good time with that too, because a lot of games are doing campaign mechanics, and people have really been enjoying it. Harkening back to, for me, the campaign mechanic that I loved was when Necromunda first came out from Games Workshop. That was the one that kind of introduced me to skirmish campaign. And people are just loving it right now. So that's exciting to see it progressing.
It's what I wanted to do with the Drowned Earth originally, and then I just realized that I didn't have the design resources. During the Kickstarter, people say things like, oh, well, you know, that's just for free, isn't it? You can just throw that in. It's like, no, because it does take me time to make these things and to develop them. And while I'm doing that, I'm not doing something else. And so, you know, from a boring business point of view, you absolutely have to put a cash value on your time and work out what resources it's going to take. And there's also playtesting resources as well. But I really wanted to create a campaign system straight away for the Drowned Earth, and I just realized I couldn't do it and make it a really watertight game as well. I could do both things half-baked, and I thought, no, okay, we'll make a really stable ground for the game, and then we'll be able, once that ground is really stable, we'll be able to build on it. Instead of bringing out a new edition every 2 years, I just want a really good edition that I can then expand with, you know, other cool ideas.
Yeah. What about, so Drowned Earth has the winter campaign. Is there going to be anything similar for the Ulaya Chronicles that kind of
I don't
parallel
know.
that?
Yeah, I sort of wonder if we couldn't do something like that, where people log their results and log their campaign playthroughs or something like that. So obviously, it won't have the same kind of narrative feel to it as a winter campaign, because everybody's playing through the same story.
Yeah.
And obviously you won't be on, you know, different teams and things like that, but I'm sure there's a way that the community can come together and turn it into a kind of group activity.
Yeah.
I guess I better jot that down then, because that's something else we can do.
Yeah,
group, right?
I'm definitely up for other people's ideas on this. I've only got so much room in my head.
And then, okay, so a couple more things, because we're running out of time. I don't want to keep you late, because I want you to launch your Kickstarter on time so that I can. Is a couple things. One is terrain. I know you did some stuff with Zen terrain.
That's right. Yeah.
Are there any plans for anything else, or is that just kind of let people do their own thing?
So I've been in touch with Christoph from Zen about, well, so you will notice that the boat, if you've seen the artwork for the boat tile, that is the Zen terrain. I've forgotten what they're called. It's not. Is it an airboat?
It's an airboat. Yeah.
Yeah. The Florida.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I actually sent the tiles have been done by a guy called Henning Ludvigsen, who did the tiles for Imperial Assault. He did the tiles for Tannhauser. He did the tiles for Mansions of Madness. He's so much stuff. The latest Zombicide. He's really prolific and amazing. And I just sent him a picture of that Zen Terrain boat and said, can you do that? And so then after I did that, I showed it to Zen Terrain and said, look what he's done. And now, how about in reverse, I send you the tile art for these things as a crashed spaceship, and we've got like a crazy spider tank, which is all ruined. And I think maybe we'll have a scenario where we flip that tile and it comes to the active side or something like that.
Awesome.
But Zen Terrain can make some of those. So I said, you know, Chris, do you fancy doing something like that? And he was like, yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
We won't be doing those things in the Kickstarter because, and again, just to sort of, before anybody asks, Deep Cut Studios makes our mats. And I hope that a neoprene mat for Ulaya Chronicles will be available. We're not going to sell them at Kickstarter because it's two things. Number one, it makes shipping very heavy, very complicated, and I know it leaves a bitter taste in people's mouths when they add things to cart and then they look and there's like $60 of shipping, and they're like, well, how has that happened? And it's because your parcel is like 5 kilos.
Right.
And so there's
Eric's
that,
a mailman, so he
and then I have to carry it.
So there's that aspect, and the other aspect, which even more importantly, is I am, as I was with the first Kickstarter, I am very serious about delivering things when I promise them, and those things are out of my control. And I have a great relationship with Deep Cut and a great relationship with Zen, and it's not a reflection on them at all. But if something goes wrong, I don't have a backup plan, and I can't make that happen. Whereas anything else that goes wrong, I can just force it through by not sleeping until the problem is solved. But that one I can't, and so I don't want to make promises and have third-party products that basically my delivery deadline is then out of my control.
Yeah, it's based on them.
Yeah. So inevitably, with a Chinese production line for the core box, that's already happening. That's just the way it is. There's no choice there, and so I've got some plans to really make sure that all runs smoothly and to talk to them very carefully. And I've got a short list of 3 companies, all of who have great reputations and make, you know, some of the big games that you've heard of, you know, so we've done a lot of hard work at making sure that it is all going to run smoothly, but you never know. But I'm confident in that. But the more, a little bit like, you know, you'd rather drive a car you can fix yourself than some sort of super fancy electric thing that, you know, the less complicated something is, the more robust it is. And I want a robust Kickstarter where I say, these are my limitations. This is what I can do. This is what I promise I will do. And I am going to do it, instead of saying, oh, so let's throw this in and throw this in. And then you've seen it happen so many times.
And then you got to figure it out.
Yeah, that's it. Because your natural instinct during a Kickstarter is to say yes to everything. Every idea is a good idea. And a lot of the ideas are great ideas.
Right.
And it's easy to get carried away by that enthusiasm yourself. And it's really hard to say no because you want to please everyone. But it's also really important to know when you have to say no.
Right. Well, I think you've mastered that because the last Kickstarter was amazing for us.
Well, I thank you, but we'll see. This time next year, then I will let you say that without any reservation. I'm certainly going to do my best.
As I used to say to my sister when we were little, you are not the boss of me, so I'm just going to say it now. I have confidence. What about you, Eric? You got anything else?
Well, it's kind of exciting to me. So it seems like the Kickstarter is kind of the start of a look into the rest of the world. You mentioned, scenarios and stuff. Is this kind of like a long-term goal for you, is to reveal different parts?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I was going to say. One of the reasons why I chose to set it, the Drowned Earth, the first Kickstarter, very much all of the characters in it, they're all based around the Great Lagoon network. And now we've gone to the Thousand Isles. And the reason is because I just want to explore slowly with each release, explore a different part of the world, a different part of the continent, really. Nobody knows what's going on in the rest of the world. But slowly uncovering different aspects and different parts of it.
Okay, that's exciting. And now, kind of along with that can you bring some of the older models from the core into the Chronicles?
So you certainly can or I hope you will be able to with the Dino models. Eventually, you definitely will. I hope we'll just be able to do it at this Kickstarter. So my plan, the system for that, is that we are going to release alpha sculpts for all of the existing dinos over the next couple of years. And when you buy the alpha sculpt, not only will you have a beefed up, awesome looking version of the basic dinos, they will have a different Drowned Earth profile card with a better profile, effectively. They'll probably have a frequency of 1, so you'll only be able to take one of them. But they will also ship with a little deck of AI cards, and they'll have the profile cards in Ulaya Chronicles for the alpha, but the other different versions of that model. So basically, we're going to have juvenile, standard, and alpha profiles for every one of those dino types. So when you buy your alpha dino, it'll come with a little deck of cards so that you can use the existing Drowned Earth dino models in Ulaya Chronicles. The idea of bringing in hero sort of characters from the Drowned Earth, that might be something that we do with custom scenarios, where maybe you've got something else that I hope will unlock, is a character deck, a sort of boss deck, effectively, for in the case of Raptor Claw Island, it'll be the pirates, but that deck will also be usable for regular, human type, sentient models that can move, shoot, and think. So then there's no reason why you can't design a scenario, and we will probably design some standalone scenarios as well that has, Kaneda, Miria, and Hosk as the enemies.
Interesting.
They're only the enemies because you don't know them well enough. They're really nice people.
Well, yeah, really they're misunderstood.
That's right. They're just
seriously misunderstood.
They just want hugs, Mac.
They just want hugs. Hosk just needs a hug to get over his problem. He needs an accountability partner, other than Kaneda. So, the last thing I want to ask you before we wrap up, so we can free you up to do Kickstarter stuff, is convention plans. I know right now everything is closed down, but it's not going to be closed. Everything's not going to be closed down next year. That's probably pretty safe to say. And so really it's kind of a loaded question. We really just want you to come to Adept Con.
Yeah. Well, I would also really love to come as well. It's something which, so recently we got distribution through Warcradle, the makers of Wild Exodus. And I guess over there, that's what they're most famous for. Yes. Over here, they're most famous for running Wayland Games, which is the biggest UK miniatures retailer. And they are at this stage, I think, now the biggest UK miniatures distributor as well. So they supply other stores. And they always have a presence at Adept Con. And so for me to go over and have my own, you guys call it a booth, I think, don't you? For me to go and have my own booth would be pretty expensive and perhaps a little bit difficult. But if Warcradle had a Drowned Earth board on the table, then I would be able to go over and talk to people and demo and what have you. And I could stay with my pal Sean, who's not far from there, and maybe we could run a tournament or two.
Me too.
Oh, really? Okay.
He knows Sean.
Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, again, it's a pipe dream, but I feel like it's not a completely unrealistic pipe dream.
No.
Because we would like to have you, because we'll be there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, I wanted to go last year, and in the end decided not to, and it's just as well. Otherwise, I'd have booked flights and a hotel, and then found I wasn't going. But next year's looking hopeful. We'll all have a shot in the arm and ignore all of it.
There you go.
That's right. Well, being prior military, I've had so many shots in the arm. I'm pretty sure I'm immune to just about everything. That's just how it goes. They give you so many shots. Any vets out there will tell you the same thing. You get tired of shots. But, well, that's all I have. Eric, you got any last questions before we release James to work really hard?
Well, maybe as quick as James can say is one of the things we wanted to ask you is kind of where do you see the game Drowned Earth in a few years? Do you see it, especially with the Chronicles coming out, more box sets and expansions in the same lines? Do you see more miniatures for the core? I mean, where do you see the game progressing?
Well, I think one of the nice things about making Ulaya Chronicles is that it gives another purpose for people's existing Drowned Earth figures, and so you kind of get a double whammy. So what I'm hoping is that we will be able to release a bunch of models, Kickstarter obviously, but in between Kickstarters as well, in a more traditional way, which have multiple uses. They're useful in both games. I'm very much into that idea. I think we need and we will have, and we've already started to work on new leaders for each faction, perhaps ways of making dinos. Perhaps each faction has a preferred dino type with a special profile that they have access to that nobody else does. And that in particular, I've thought of quite an interesting way of doing that. The alpha models as well will sort of lean into that idea. And basically, I think it's about trying to create interesting releases that work in both games, but as far as the Drowned Earth is concerned, make list building really interesting and create some sort of synergies and different ideas going on, so that you can really build your crew in a number of different ways. So I hope that answers the question. I would definitely like to do a 2-player box set. Flying rules are probably on the agenda somewhere down the line. It'd be cool to do an Ulaya Chronicles that has some more underwater style stuff. We might even see a sort of semi-submerged map in this scenario. I've got an idea. We're releasing a map which is basically made of poster material. It would be criminal for it not to be double-sided. And so at the moment, I think it's going to have a riverside and a grass side. But we could ditch the grass side and have a kind of cave interior side with a little bit of technology, and maybe the tiles will have a different sort of environment flip side on them as well. That would all be really cool. No reason you can't use those in Drowned Earth as well if you're not the terrain building type. And if you are the terrain building type, then I hope they will give people some really cool inspiration for awesome things to build as well.
You release it, I'll build it.
Well, yeah, these kind of world building ideas is exciting. And I mean, if that doesn't convince anybody to jump in and play, I don't know what does.
yeah. It's definitely, I know for there's always a difference between the sort of hardcore gamers that are mostly interested in the rules in the game, and people for whom the game is a vehicle to get inside the world and to explore it and tell stories. And I think Drowned Earth is suitable for both of those people. I think Ulaya Chronicles will be even more suitable for both of those people, because there's quite a lot of tactical challenge going on in a co-op game, where I really want to the system to encourage people to genuinely work together and find cool and interesting ways of setting each other up, so like the football soccer analogy is he crosses, you score, kind of thing. And I want those kind of mechanics in the way that people build their characters. They see the opportunity to, well, if I take that skill card and you build your character that way, then we can really set each other up to do cool stuff.
Right. That's outstanding. Well, James, thank you so much for joining us.
Most
I really
it's been a pleasure.
It. And so I will throw links in the description on the video for the Chronicles preview page, so that you can follow along to see when it launches. I will also have links for the Drowned Earth page, where you can purchase anything if you just absolutely need to before the Kickstarter comes, which you do. Also the Drowned Earth Facebook page and the Drowned Earth Facebook fan page, where there's always lots of stuff being posted up there.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
This is Mac for Indie Invasion, and
this is Eric. We'll talk to you guys later.
And remember to prepare yourself for the next invasion.